Welcome to the All Things Circular podcast, your gateway to the circular economy. Hosted by industry experts Victoria D'Arcy and Rich Bulger. Every episode is proof that circularity isn't just good for the planet. It's a smart business decision. Our mission is simple: to empower, to inform, and to show you how to make the circular economy work for you.
Hi everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the All Things Circular podcast. Super excited about our podcast today. We've got a wonderful guest, Mandy Deakin-Snell, who's going to join us and talk to us about the supply chain and about the optimization of the supply chain. Really excited about this. Obviously, Victoria D'Arcy, got my co-host here, Rich Bulger.
Hello.
Mandy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mandy Deakin-Snell. I'm the founder and CEO of MDS Alignment Limited, and I'm also the head of the NEX Academy, which we'll talk about later.
Before we jump into that, can we talk for just a second about how cool this place is? Vic, where did you bring us today?
So actually today, we're not on the set of Harry Potter, although it probably looks like we are. We're actually in Audley Edge, which is a little place called the Wizard's Thatch, because there was a legend of Audley Edge concerning a certain wizard called Merlin. So I brought you to a little thatched cottage where it looks like we're about to cast some spells.
This might be the coolest setting we will ever have on All Things Circular.
It is amazing.
I'm glad it's worked out, actually, because, yes, first time I've been in this building as well, but I will be back. It's cool.
Yeah, UK is great.
Well, yeah, welcome to the UK, Rich. He's actually flown in. So for this episode and for a couple more, we're actually going to be next to each other, which is unusual.
Yeah, we'll try to make that a habit as much as we can.
Absolutely. And, Mandy, thank you so much for coming to join us
you're
today.
welcome.
You're welcome. So, let's dive in. So, Mandy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and sort of why we've invited you on this podcast today?
Okay, I've had a background in supply chain for over 30 years, probably longer actually. And I started in, my background is in TNT, and then I progressed and ran my own freight forwarding business, eventually working for DPD and joined their board of directors as international operations director for quite a few years. And that's where I really got into the e-commerce side of things, because we started to work with some great retailers in the very early days of e-commerce. And it was when we were just testing out different ways of doing things. So I've been right at the forefront of when that started. And going on those journeys with those retailers was just amazing. Great training ground.
Oh, it sounds great. But also, so you're here both in your capacity as a coach and a mentor and as an educator, but also as a representative of Next Ecommerce.
Yes.
And I wondered if you could just briefly, tell us and our listeners a little bit about what Next Ecommerce is.
Yes. So NEX e-commerce is a fantastic network of supply chain professionals. So people who are leaders in their field. It's a very select network, should we say. You have to qualify in each country so that you're bringing something unique and authentic to the network itself. It has 4 pillars of that it attracts its members on. So there's the pillar where it has a membership network where you have, as I say, professionals all around the world that we can connect to that have expertise. It also has a hub, so that if you are, I think you could explain that a bit better than me, but I'll talk about that in a second. It also has the academy, which is one of the pillars itself. You can either be an associate of the academy without being a member. So in some of the regions that we have, it might be that there's already a member doing the same thing, but it might be that you are a potential member but want to learn more, and that's when you would come to the academy to educate yourself in some of the training courses we're going to be offering. So you'll be an associate at that point, and then eventually you might be qualified to become a member.
I remember the first time that I heard about Next Ecommerce, I was invited to go through and be at the inaugural kickoff. And when I went to the Next Academy, spending a lot of my time with the National Retail Federation and with the Reverse Logistics Association, I consider myself a well-traveled person. But when I went to Next, I was in a room full of a whole bunch of people that I didn't know, and I was super excited. What I loved about Next and the network was the fact that the idea was brilliantly simple. If you're someone who goes through and builds something, your mindset is on how do I build this thing good? And how do I go through and make sure that people buy it? And what attracted me to Next was the supply chain's figured out. And not only is it figured out in one region, it's figured out on a global region. So making something in China and shipping it to Australia is entirely different than getting a hold of product in South Africa and trying to get it to Dubai. So when Next started going through and acquiring all of these different pieces of the supply chain, so people didn't need to know, do I need a manufacturer? Who's going to be my warehouser? Who's going to be my freight forwarder? Import-export compliance, reverse logistics, which is its own complicated weapon that ties into circular. I love the fact that Next has figured out how to go through and get qualified people in specific verticals and automate the technology through the hub. So these small businesses that are figuring out what partners that they're looking for don't have to figure out how to integrate the tech. Really cool way to scale. Brilliant idea. Love everything about Next.
I think when I first was introduced to it through Mandy, and I don't come from the reverse world, I think what was critical for me was the way that it extracts this specialist knowledge, because people don't realize, and Rich just alluded to it to some degree, but it's real specialist stuff. And also forward logistics is very, very different to reverse logistics. I mean, they're completely different worlds, and also never the twain shall meet. And actually, if you've got a business that relies on both and you don't understand that interlink, then it's actually a potential point of failure.
Yeah. And I like what Rich said there. It's about bringing the expertise together, because we have got the whole supply chain figured out, but you have the experts in each segment of that supply chain. I work with logistics companies now, sort of consulting as well on their e-commerce strategy and commercial strategies. And they all say, we want to get into e-commerce. And so, well, you're probably already doing e-commerce. You're bringing containers from China. It's carrying e-commerce. So it's looking at it end to end and helping those logistics companies figure out how they can connect all the dots through the NEX hub and be able to connect with all of our members to have that end to end supply chain. So it taps in perfectly with what you said there, Rich.
Yeah, and after COVID disrupted the supply chain in massive ways, and not only did it disrupt, it also changed the way that people shop in a significant degree. So the rules of engagement for retail and how you go through and stock and prevent churn are different than the rules of engagement that you need when you're going through and managing e-commerce. And I love the fact that this one is focused on e-commerce where return rates are high. People want things shipped next day. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that e-commerce companies are facing that Next can help with?
Yes. So one of the biggest challenges with e-commerce, let's talk about the retailer side of things. They have the option to use multiple different carriers, and they can use logistics companies depending on what they want to do. But the SMEs in particular really struggle to get that whole supply chain. They have to go through an integrator to achieve it. Now, I'm from an integrator background before I set up my own company, MDS Alignment. So I can look at it sort of objectively and say, yes, that's fit for purpose now, but if you want to scale up, you really do need to start understanding the end-to-end experience, the customer experience. So it starts with the customer ordering on your platform, and also having the tracking ability, which is what Next also offers, is the tracking ability throughout that supply chain to getting your returns back. And that's your expertise. And we talked about this earlier. The expertise that you need to get that reverse logistics back so that it's really efficient, back in your stock. You can resell it either locally or centrally, but you have to have visibility of that. And I think some of the SMEs really struggle with that. And some bigger retailers, actually.
I think it's a critical point, actually, because what people don't realise is the optimization of the supply chain is profitability. I mean, it's cash. It's your cash flow.
Exactly.
It's, by not managing that properly, you're actually not managing your cash flow properly, really. And it's also the customer experience. I mean, we were chatting earlier about a great experience you had where you were testing a supply chain for a little supplier who was making a food product. And it was really quite an interesting story.
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to just recap on that, I think, and this might be insightful for your listeners. When you are talking about e-commerce, and we have some fantastic entrepreneurs out there that come up with some amazing ideas for goods and they want to get them to market, everybody thinks of going through Amazon, but some of the beginners, they just go straight to the immediate carriers and think that the carrier will sort everything out. But the responsibility of the retailer is to actually look at what is the experience from when that customer first goes online. Can they get to the checkout? Is it easy? Are they going to abandon checkout? Because that's one of the first things as an e-com seller you have to think about. Have to make that first impression as streamlined as possible so that the customer has all the information up front. So the case that we talked about was this fantastic entrepreneur who'd come up with a food product during the pandemic, because we couldn't eat in pubs and couldn't eat out in restaurants unless you were going to the pub, and then you couldn't eat in the pub unless it was pub food. So she came up with a vegan pub food, basically. And it was very fantastic idea and concept, went really well throughout the pandemic. Then she wanted to sell it online. And then the reason I came across her, I saw her speak and realised that she was struggling with her carriers because, things were getting lost or delayed. So I helped her connect with the right carrier, etc. But I also thought, let me go and see what that experience was like.
Test it out in real time, right? Because how do you know unless you can be your own customer?
Yeah, because I thought, are the carriers really failing, or is there something in her supply chain that she needs to put right? And when I went online and placed the order, I found out at checkout you needed a minimum order, so I had to go back and order some more product. And when I got to pay for it, I found out there was a hefty delivery charge that I didn't know about. And then I thought, well, I'll just keep going. And I got the order put through. Then I got my first notification. I won't name the carrier because, it'd be unprofessional to do that.
They might be listening.
They might be listening. Yes, the carrier notification was confusing because it said, we have the goods in our, we've received your order. And I'm thinking, that was quick. And then the following day it said, we haven't received your order. We've got a delay and we'll let you know when we do receive it. And then on the third day, they actually told me they were delivering it the following day within a certain time period. So that whole experience was awful. But then when the product arrived and it was in a box that looked like it'd been to China and back and reversed a few times, covered in tape with food product in it, not a great experience. So we as the NEX Academy want to educate not just our members and people in supply chain, but retailers too. And I think that's where we can really make a difference in the market to say, this is a platform. The NEX Academy is your go-to education platform for all things supply chain. And if you're an e-commerce retailer, there's also an opportunity to educate yourself and your staff through that platform, because we're attracting some really, really interesting educators.
It's a great thought, because my experience working for makers of things and distributors of things is the supply chain is really good at the one part of the process, being able to see where they're getting things from and where they're shipping them to next. And there's some levels of synergies, but when it goes further down or coming from further upstream, that information flow is not connected together.
Exactly.
And there might be some things that you need there that break the process down the road. Mm. So the brilliant idea of going through and saying, these are all the pieces, they're all integrated, is a beautiful thing. And you touched upon something else that's unique with Next, and that is not only being able to certify vendors and make sure tech works, but training.
Yeah,
so
ultimately.
Talk to me about training and how you've built that out.
So the training side of things, when I was first approached to head the NEX Academy up, I was inspired by the masterclass, first of all, that I attended of yours. So I've got to drop that in there because it was a game changer. And it was part of what I thought, oh my gosh, everybody needs to be educated on reverse logistics, the circular economy, and the fact that it's not just a cost, it could potentially be a revenue stream. I mean,
it could definitely be a revenue
was
stream.
A phenomenal masterclass, and I'm proud to say I got a certificate in it. And I thought, how can we bring this to a wider audience? Because not everybody can get bums on seats and all come to the same venue. So that, in addition to the fact that there was a serendipitous meeting with somebody who runs an LMS, which is a learning management system, and could help us put these courses together, I thought this is something that's super exciting. And yes, there's lots of training courses out there and lots of online training out there, but are they all in one place? Are they accessible? How are they marketed? How do we take people on the journey of supply chain so that they feel they're getting some education and they're educating the people that work for them? Because I'm all about how do we attract people in the first place into supply chain. I did a talk on bridging the gap, on the generation gap, but also how do we keep people engaged in all the aspects of the supply chain industry, including reverse logistics and the circular economy. And it goes back to what you said in your book and on the masterclass. There is very little information on how you do reverse logistics. And I think you when you were studying it, was it a 1999 book that was written all those years ago?
I just got a master's degree in reverse logistics from the only college on the planet that I found that had a curriculum, American Public University, and the textbook that they used was written in 1999.
Unbelievable.
Going backwards, where the thought was to drive down all returns. Circular economy didn't even become a word until 2013.
Wow.
And with that, you've actually got to drive returns up. Mm-hmm. Supply chain people don't just move boxes. They've got to identify how product moves from customer 1 to customer 2. What does customer 2 want? So there's a different marketing element to it. And the thought is, when done right, you can not only benefit the environment by keeping things in use, but you can also introduce new revenue streams or accelerate the revenue streams by using the residual value, giving it to the customer so they could buy the next new thing faster.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And how wonderful to be able to educate people in that. And you've already, you're way ahead of the game. You've already started launching your courses. And I'm absolutely honoured that you are our first and primary educator on our brand new NEX Academy. And I'm super excited for that to be launched.
I've never been to a show where they had real education. You get a keynote speaker that would go through and talk, or you would have some people go through and be on a panel where you might be able to ask questions, but you did something different. When we were in Hong Kong, not only did we provide an 8-hour in-depth masterclass on circular logistics and the platforms that are needed to move product and find used demand and match it with used supply, but you created a certification program for that. Can you tell me about how that came about and the differentiation that you're making in the market through education with certifications?
Yes. So one of the things that NEX wanted to do was be the sponsor of the certification, particularly for your course and other courses. We wanted to be able to ensure that whoever attended the course were educated. It wasn't just a show and tell. We didn't want to come along, do a presentation. We wanted to actually use it more than a workshop. It was an educational workshop. It was a masterclass at the end of the day. And we wanted to sponsor that and show that NEX is all about certification and education and taking people through a process where they actually learned something and didn't just come along to have fantastic presentation, beautiful slides, but we actually learned. And, we were tested throughout. And at the end of it, you felt like you earned that certificate.
Yeah.
So I was super happy when I found out that Justus, who's our CEO, wanted to sponsor the certification for your course. So that was very exciting.
The other thing I just wanted to highlight about the NEX courses is the online courses, but where you can go back and you can review, because I don't know if other people are like myself. Sometimes you miss certain things, particularly if you're new to the topic, and particularly also with acronyms and different language. And I think we're all fall foul at times of using acronyms and assuming people are following us. And actually, well, maybe this is the British thing, you just nod politely. Just let it happen.
Everyone is so polite here.
We do try. Not always. I think you touched on something really important there, Vic, because we said about this earlier. We wanted the platform to not just have online courses because they are important. The younger generation love online courses because you can stop it and go back to it and you can learn in your own time. But we also want to do what's called virtual online, and that means the teacher is present, teaching online, so you can do Q&As, you can ask. So we wanted it so that it was not just a one-size-fits-all. We'll do in-person courses, maybe at the events. We'll do something similar to the masterclass, and we've also been invited to attend other people's events to do some training. So there's in-person courses. There'll be virtual online where it's live and happening, and you're in wherever you're doing this from, all over the world. You've got the teacher there talking to you and training you, but also the online courses that, like Vic said, you can refer back to.
Okay.
You can stop, you go, I'm not sure of that, you can go back to. But I'm going to create also a forum so that people can ask questions of the course owner. So whoever puts a course onto our platform, they will own it. They will keep it up to date because, our industry changes, the legislation changes, things are coming to the forefront all the time. It's important we keep it relevant, up to date, because lots of people have courses out there that you go on and think, things have changed a little bit since then.
Rich's book being the example, right? A 1996 text used to, now create the updated 2024 it came out, but the new updated version of relevant information because industries move, tech moves. But I also just wanted to highlight something that you said there is the transfer of knowledge. And one thing that I think is really, really important is there are captains of industry, there are people that have been in business for many years, and their knowledge is invaluable. And to be able to actually then deliver that to the next generation of business owners, who will probably tweak it to suit their, unique needs. But actually the concepts generally have been around for a long time because they work. Mm-hmm. And I think what's wonderful about NEX is the invitation to then say, if you are one of these people and you see this gap of knowledge, but you have this knowledge, come and create a course, deliver your knowledge and allow others to learn from you. And I think that's wonderful because I've never heard of that before.
It's quite unique to us because the advantage of the people that are building our platform and have put this learning management system together, we're using one of the top 5 platforms that are out there in learning management. They are educators, so they know how to put an online course together. So if you've got the content, you come and talk to us and we can help you. It's your investment, but we will help you put that course together and you will own it. But we will make sure that we get the right people on those courses. We'll work with you so they're the right quality. And it might be that you want to do some low-cost tasters to start with. People are a bit excited, but also they're nervous about putting these things out there. But it's a great opportunity and no one else is doing this.
They're not, but it's the mentoring side, because I think some people always, they're fearful of their own knowledge, just like, I couldn't possibly, why would people want to learn from me? And actually, it's incredible what we pick up over our years in industry. I don't want to give my age away, but it's the year of the snake this year, and I'm also a snake. but I'm actually sitting next to 2 authors here. So we've spoken about, Rich wrote his book, which came out last year, and but also, we have Logistics Legends here, which is Mandy's book.
We are sitting next to a real live logistical legend.
That makes me sound really old. Well, I am, but I have a lot of information and knowledge to, like you said, to pass on. And when I was asked to contribute to the book, my chapter in it should inspire people that even when you don't know what you want to do, I fell into logistics, I fell into supply chain. There's a lot of serendipity, but I took risk, had great mentors along the way. And I think that made the difference, which is why I'm passionate about mentoring, which is why my business is all about coaching, mentoring and training. This gave me the opportunity to share the story of how crazy it was, how I got into it. So I won't go into too much detail. You can read the story in the book. Read the book.
So it was a great segue into the 2 next logical questions. Number 1, where can people find your book, The Logistics Legends? And where can people go to learn more about NEX Ecommerce?
Okay, great 2 questions. Thank you. Logistics Legends is available on Amazon, and a friend of mine in Hong Kong actually sent me a message last night saying, where do I get your book? is it out yet? And where do I get it? And I said, it's on Amazon, thinking, please let it be on Amazon in Hong Kong. And it is, because he's ordered it. He's just messaged me. So you can order it on Amazon.
Worldwide.
Yes, thank you. And it's not just me in there. There's some fantastic authors in there. You've got Rudy Bertie, who's part of the NEX, one of the NEX founders. And I want to say the names correctly, so I'm going to do them justice. We've got Christy Guo, who actually put the book together, and she's got a great story as well. Gilbert Ernest, fantastic legends, these people. Derek Scarborough in the US. We've got Mr. Ashwin Dudwana, a fantastic story. And we have the amazing Dr. Razamanikam. I hope I've said that right. I'm really sorry. But Dr. Sri, let's call him Dr. Sri, because that's what I know him as, and he's fantastic. And then we have Dipanka Parasha. Oh, thank you. I said that right. But these are fantastic authors. They've got great stories, all about logistics, and it will help people see there's other parts of logistics. It's not just moving parcels. There's all sorts of different aspects of supply chain that can get into.
Well, there are, because one thing we haven't yet touched on is the sustainability aspects of logistics. And what was really interesting to me is, and we're talking about optimization, and a lot of this and your expertise and a lot of the courses is around how do you optimize for, for business success. But actually, sustainability forms a key part of that, because the right packaging, and as a small business, Mandy, you can articulate this better than I, but you're charged, for the size of the box that you ship. So if you've not got that right, you're actually, you're putting more costs into your business than you need to do. And I think we've all kind of been frustrated, at times like Christmas, where we've got piles and piles of boxes arriving, all this cardboard, and then you pull out, something tiny like a packet of batteries.
Well, and that gets into pragmatic challenges that address both economic and environmental. If your box is too big, you're using more materials and you're paying to ship more air, which is more waste. If you're shipping things further than they need to go,
absolutely,
the recycling miles or the transportation miles cost in terms of environmental, ozone, CO2, but also you're paying more to ship. So if you go through and you take a pragmatic approach, you impact the bottom line and the environment.
I've got a funny story about that.
Okay.
I'll tell it.
Yeah, please.
This was one of the big retailers. Again, I won't name them, but a big retailer we were working with in the early days that was doing a fantastic business across the UK, hadn't really gone further afield, had dipped their toe into Europe and were doing quite well, but they wanted to go further afield, especially into the English-speaking countries where there was lots of expats that wanted to order their brand. So we didn't know they were going to do this, but we started to take them on the journey to set them up on their international distribution. And they suddenly, just I think out of curiosity, put their website on, switched it on worldwide, and not thinking for 1 minute that anybody would order. And we suddenly started to see these linen boxes coming through for Australia. Now you imagine a huge linen box. It's a couple of feet high, and it's a foot and a half wide, full of fresh air, being sent all the way to Australia. So expensive. We contacted them, please switch it off. There are certain products that you don't want to be sending worldwide on an Air Express, for example. We can ship it in other ways, but definitely not on an Air Express.
That's why you need an organization like NEX to be able to go through and have all the experts that have already taken those lumps, figure it out. So how would our listeners find NEX?
Sorry, you did ask that question. So NEX is, you contact us online, or you can contact myself or Rudy or Eustace or Jason Lee. If we can put a link maybe on the podcast.
We can. There might be a link for your book that's there as well. But what's the website for NEX?
So it's nexecommerce.com. I'm saying that. Please edit that because I need to check.
Oh, I'll say, what is the website for NEX e-commerce?
NEX e-commerce.
All right.
Yeah.
.com.
Yeah, .com. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope. Take that out, please.
And finally, I want to thank you because NEX is sponsoring the certification for the Masterclass Essentials that's taking place at the RLA in Las Vegas on May 11th at 8 a.m. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about why you're investing in conferences like the RLA?
I think it's important. Conferences like the RLA is one of the best for getting the word out there about what reverse logistics and circular economy and sustainability and circular economy is. So we saw that as a worthwhile investment, not only just because it's a great platform for us to be seen in that part of the supply chain, but also we wanted to support and sponsor your course because it's one of its kind, it's unique. And we want to be at the forefront with you, championing what you're doing and also educating people through the academy with your course.
Great. And those that attend that masterclass will get a certificate of completion from the next academy, which I'm really excited that you're making those types of declarations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just think it's wonderful. I think that, what NEX are doing is enabling small businesses to function like large businesses. Is having, we've spoken about transfer of knowledge, but actually it's the access to the expertise, which I think SMEs are severely lacking. And actually, I think that really helps an SME become successful, but also, wrapping it into, why the circular economy is, logistics is a critical part of the circular economy. It has to work.
Yeah.
It has to be optimized. And to do that, you need to pull in the experts. And, Mandy, thank you for being, the expert we've been able to lean on and hopefully educate some of our listeners out there.
Well, I think you picked the perfect place because this room is called Wizardry.
It is, and I love the magic that we sort of.
This has been magical. Mandy, before we close it out, any final thoughts that you'd love our listeners to think about?
Yeah, we've talked about logistics and supply chain, and my company, MDS Alignment, is all about education, coaching, training, and working with logistics companies. My passion, the reason I left supply chain is to follow my passion for helping people. And through NEX Academy, I can achieve that. Through my business, I can achieve that. I coach and mentor. I mentor students. I'm a student mentor. Do that voluntarily because that's how passionate I am about education and just mentoring people. And I also offer some training in multiple brain integration techniques. So maybe we can have a conversation about that if you want to contact me through the link. That's something else that helps people think differently and make more resourceful decisions.
As a consultant myself, I think I'm going to be contacting you to learn a bit about that. Yes. But it is, I think where we are now, we're just, let's look at ways to make ourselves successful. And how we do that is a collective, and it's knowledge, and it's coaching, and it's mentoring, and it's accessing information, and having information actually, delivered to us.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you for making a difference.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for the invitation.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Well, I think we might have to come back here, Richard.
This might be a favorite.
Yeah, I think so. So the next podcast that you watch will probably be in some sort of stifled environment.
Tune in for more.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Please head over to allthingscircular.com to learn more.